So I just spoke about the dynamic model which an AI playbook has to have. It's very different than the organizational models that have been tried and tested in the industry in the past 5, 6 decades. Well, probably during the birth of the management consulting in the late 30s and the 40s, when organizations were becoming more centralized, and then creating a hub and spoke model, developing matrix organizations. Unfortunately, this is not going to work in an economy today, as technological changes happen on a weekly basis. Updates and product refreshes are coming literally, with algorithms. It's going to be probably, in seconds or milliseconds, and you have no idea how the algorithms are changing and adapting to the market realities. But again, let's get into the organizational model. So this is part of the workshop that we'll be giving to the executive management, large companies with tens of billions of euros worth of revenues. So if you look at this, let's try to look at this as a dynamic model, or I call it an AI dynamism. So AI dynamism. What this means is the dynamism is not in that static picture you have. So if you were to sort of sketch this into, if this was the competitive aspect, and this is a cooperative model of organizations, and if this were the central, let's write it with capital letters, and this was the decentral, you would have an organization structure here that would be more, more centralized and competitive. A company like probably, Google, fits the bill. It's very super competitive. And on a model, a decentral model could be an organization, for example, like IBM, could be a decentral, we'll just say Google here. I think, I would call, for example, General Electric here. So this is a decentral model. This is an hub and spoke, super central model, a hub. So this is, so GE could probably be here. Potentially IBM could also be here. And then you have a highly leveraged, a networked model. So this is a networked model, networked model. And this is an ethno-local model, just sort of ethno-local model. And this is your hub model, central hub model. So a network company could be, I think media companies, for example. Media companies are super networked. They have to sort of network with the ecosystem. And then you have a cooperative model. Example could be Honda here. Honda, I'll give an example maybe in a detailed lecture in a few minutes. The thing is, an organization actually exists at various levels. It's not just this. It's you could say that the organization actually could be in all places and all the times. What does this mean? So a central model works perfectly for a company like Google if you were here, but it may not work in a long term. So what I'm trying to create in the dynamic model is how these organizations, for example, if they want to evolve into a hub model, and then especially with skills. So they were, how do you tap into the AI, ML, and deep learning skills if you were a company, let's say, at this position. So you could tap into this model, and if you start tapping into this model, your hub model starts becoming stronger. There is no one-size-fit-all model in this case. In this case, for example, this is where the dynamism comes in more. So if an organization is decentral, which is here, and it needs to get more synergistic, it has to, this is not synergistic, it's decentralized, it's competitive, but it's not sort of, partnering with the network ecosystem. So moving towards this model, which you call synergistic, makes a lot of sense for this company. Now, shifting these competencies to a network model, because a network model heavily relies, so this is a network model, it heavily relies on the network ecosystem. So all these companies that exist here and partner ecosystem, it may be useful, but eventually also eats into your revenues. So moving from a hub and spoke model, you could move the competencies. So in this case, let's just focus on AI, ML, DL. So essentially, you can move the competencies or share competencies. Yeah. But again, this thing becomes super costly. It's a very costly operation. How do you reduce the cost? Is you could shift it down. Your companies have been doing that in the last couple of decades. So this is based on a research done by 2 Swiss researchers back in the late 90s. They've been studying companies for a decade, so they started the research in the beginning of the 90s. So if you want to bring the cost down, you have to move towards a cooperative but competitive. So it's, you bring the cooperative model, something like what Honda did back in the early 80s when they wanted to set up a remote location, a remote office, but had no idea, so they did not want to have a full competitive model like this. They just wanted to set up a small remote satellite operation that was cooperative but kept the cost down so they could go and explore the market to see and gauge the demand and the need for the new Honda car they were developing. So how do you get there? So, a competitive may not necessarily be market-driven. Well, in case of Google per se, you might say, well, it's market-driven because it has different dynamics. It uses technology and software to kind of be all over the place. But just in case, if Google faces the new challenge from EU or other regions, that you have to establish yourself here, you have to be part of the taxation system and everything else to exist and not just be a remote, competitive and centralized authority, then for a company like Google, it might make a lot of sense to move here and become market-driven. So this is how you can become market-driven when you start adopting and start moving more towards a cooperative model. So essentially, you see, this is dynamism, and this dynamism actually defines essentially, whether you're synergistic, do you tap in skills to a hub model, do you take the competencies from the AI and ML hub and transfer them to a network model? You shift your organization structure to focus on the costs, or you shift away from a centralized model more towards cooperative but ethno-local model. And this is how you kind of become a competitive organization. I'm also going to quickly share the full picture so you get an idea of what it looks like. And that also has the link to the research that we have used. Obviously, this is not the end of the story. What basically, so these are the models in which companies kind of literally, I don't know, if you were a company, existing for 100 years, a company like GE or other companies, your path probably is has been something like this, depending on how the market has been moving. So you essentially keep rotating. And this dynamism was probably super important back in, and it took decades for organizations to change their organization structure. But if you want to be an AI company, you need to move yourself faster from a decentralized, cooperative, competitive model into a network model, and essentially be able to sort of lift and shift like a pop-up shop and kind of operate. It sounds silly to propose something like this, but I definitely believe that if you're able to lift and shift your AI or ML or DL departments or organizations, and eventually be able to rotate them based on how you actually identify your organization, is going to be super helpful. So the last point is super important. How you will identify your organization is based on 9 different dimensions with 6 to 10 sub-dimensions, which we used in the last workshop, where executives from Walmart and Honeywell and a bunch of other big organizations participated. And those are the key levers, which I will go into the next topic, because it's a big topic. You're talking about 9 huge dimensions that defines an enterprise company. So much for the AI playbook and an AI dynamism. I look forward to seeing you in the next class.